Welcome to the Guitar for Vets Guitar Shop. The Guitar Shop is officially open. If you're new to this guitar shop or any other guitar shop, make sure your hands are clean before entering and enter with a smile for the staff. Guitar shops are the guitar player's mecca where you can try out gear and learn about new gear. One programming note is that the Guitar Shop will be back on its normal schedule of every second Saturday of the month. The next show will be on July 12th at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, keep an eye out for the dates and time wherever you get your information regarding Guitar for Vets events or Cav Arts events for that matter. Have you heard of Spark Smart Amps, headphone amps? Well, this ain't our subject for today. Today we talk about guitar and audio interface. With an audio interface, you can put together that dream rig for your acoustic or your electric guitar without emptying out your wallet. The Guitar Shop's guitar gurus, will guide you through an audio interface and putting it to work on your mobile device, tablet, laptop, or desktop computer. One thing please bear in mind is that our discussions are based on our experienced opinions, and every effort is taken to verify any information we put forth. Any references to brands is for demonstration purposes only. We at the Guitar for Vets Guitar Shop have no affiliation with any of the brands we mention. Please allow me to introduce the Guitar Shop staff. I am Daniel B. I'm a G4V cyber instructor and your host. And along with me are the guitar gurus, John DeMarco and Michael O'Connell. We're going to start this off with Michael O'Connell. He is just starting his presentation, as this is an edited intro. So take it away, Michael.
There you go. So I'm having a lot of fun with software rigs, and so my presentation today is going to be an introduction to software rigs, software recording for both guitar, mostly guitar, but a little bit of vocals as well, and how you can get started in it, and what are the basic components of it and how you use them. After me, John's going to jump into audio interfaces and take a deep dive to give you a little bit more education on what to look for and what might work for you. All right, so I'm going to start here and see if I'm actually Daniel. So I'm sharing my PowerPoint presentation. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So basically, it's software guitar gear is the title of it, and computer-based effects and recording, as I mentioned. So what is it? What are we talking about? So it's essentially taking your PC, your Mac, or your mobile device, iPhone or Android phone, or tablet, and using it for software that then processes your guitar signal and your vocal signals and spits them out to whatever output you'd like, headphones or speaker, amp, doesn't really matter what it is. It's an output signal that can go into anything that takes input signals and produces sound. The computer device then runs the software which adds the effects to guitars and vocals, and in some cases I'll show you both guitar rigs which only produce sound, right, effects, and then I'll show you one piece of software, FenderStudio, which allows you to record your own guitar and vocals as well as a backing track that they can produce for you. And then, like I said, you can listen on anything that produces sound that takes a line input. So that's basically where we're heading. What's the requirement and the equipment? You have to have a guitar with a pickup. That's an acoustic electric, either with an embedded pickup, a piezo pickup under the bridge, or you can put a pickup on it, or an electric guitar. You can also, I won't be touching on this too much today, but you can also mic an acoustic guitar and do the same. You run it through the computer as well. I haven't tried that. It's a little bit out of my basket here in terms of what I'm really looking for in my sounds, but it's possible to do it, and I've mic'd my guitars to record them before, so I know how to do that and can answer questions about it. The piece that is critical to all of this is the audio interface. And I will show you a diagram, and I'm going to show you an example, and John's going to jump in. But this is what connects the components together, right? You'll see that in the diagram. You have both portable interfaces, which either contain their own battery or run off of your power that comes out of a USB port on your mobile device or your computer. And you can have studio-based, which are more powerful, typically run software on your device that controls the audio interface, as opposed to a smaller one that you'll see today that really is simply doesn't you don't need the software for it. It doesn't have that capability. It's easier to use in that respect. You need the computing device, as I mentioned, the software, and a lot of these audio interfaces come bundled with free software, free effects software. You'll get a chance to play with a lot of different software components and then figure out what you'd like to do. And then you need something to listen with, disturb your neighbors with, and cables. So that's pretty much it. You don't need a pedal board. You don't need to connect pedals together. You don't need to worry about the powering of the pedals. You don't need to worry about any of that. And probably the biggest win of all here is that you can own hundreds of pedals for basically the price of a small amplifier. Right? You don't have to go out and buy hardware anymore if you want to get into sound effects for your guitars. Okay. All right. The one that I'm going to show you is called basically a little promo here, so that you can see what I'm talking about. Is an iRig Pro Duo. John's going to dive deeper into these things. But let's go ahead and roll this. You should be hearing sound.
Yep.
So that's his audio interface, the iRig Pro Duo. There you go. So that's just to take a quick peek at what and I have to do something because my slides aren't advancing anymore. That's just a quick peek at how you can use it. But notice the key things: it was portable. You didn't have any external power. You could plug a microphone into it. You could plug your guitar into it, and so it's in that sense. It's very, very easy to use. No software, no application software for the iRig on your phone. All the drivers should be present for what you need to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if these slides will advance. So here's the connection diagram. I hope you can all see. It's a little faded. But think of this as a generic audio interface. Regardless of what the box looks like and the controls on it look like, they all perform about the same functions. Some they have expanded capabilities, better components. But so you notice here at the bottom there are two inputs, either for guitar or microphone. And that could be an electric acoustic guitar as well as what you see here, the electric guitar. They typically have a headphone output for monitoring, so you can hear what's happening in real time. They have a left and right speaker output, so you can get stereo output from them. And you can direct left and right to two different speakers, or you can combine them with a little combination jack and plug them into one set of one speaker if that's what you have. Notice that we had a keyboardist in the video, so that was a MIDI interface. And MIDI is the keyboard itself doesn't produce the sounds; it sends the messages to software. And you saw keyboard software on his tablet, and so it sends those messages from the keyboard software into the so from the keyboard. It sends them from the keyboard into the audio interface. Just like a guitar and a microphone produce input to the audio interface, except this time it's in actual text messages in a way. This one you can have external power. This one I think is also bus powered. That means when you plug it into a computer, it draws the power from the computer's USB port, and then you can have your device, mobile device, tablet, or phone, or a PC, or a notebook style of computer. So that's kind of the connection diagram for it. Very straightforward. All right. So what I want to do now is just give you a live demonstration of how these things work. And just so that you understand my setup, I have what's called a Scarlett 4i4 audio interface. It's a desktop interface, so it's more designed for a studio. And it has 4 inputs, but right now I have one input. Input number 1 is on my microphone, and input number 2 is for my guitar. And you'll see how that works out when I open up some guitar software. So let me start out with, actually before I go to FenderStudio, I want to, let's go here. I want to go to something called Guitar Solo 3.5, and I'm going to share that with you instead of what you have now, because we're going to start out with a simple look at things and then go a little more complex. Okay. All right, and this is where, unfortunately, here we go. Stop sharing this one. Okay. That keeps hiding on me. So I'm going to go here. So this is Waves Audio's Guitar Solo 3.5, version 3.5 app. This is running on my MacBook. And you can see that it has pedals. It's got 3 pedal slots. They come bigger if you'd like. There's a wide variety of these things. These are the stomp pedals, or the stomp boxes. If I click this, you can see I have an amp, and then I have a tuner, and I also have presets. But let's take a look at the amp first. So here is a guitar rig amplifier, but let's just say I wanted to go for a different sound. Let's say I want a Humbucker 1, right? So what it does is it's going to set the amp for me for that particular preset. Otherwise, I could change drive, I could change bass, right? My EQ, basically bass, mid, and treble. I can mix the signal, either direct guitar signal, more of that or less of that, more coming out of the amp as opposed to direct, right? Bypassing the amp. And the other things that I can do here is I can change, let's go for drive light on the amp. You notice it changed the amp, right? So I have different amps in here. Now, this is all guitar proprietary amplifier technology, software technology. But some of these applications will allow you to dial in Fender amps, or pick your bass amp, or right, your acoustic amp. Pretty much any number of amps out there are available to you in some of these pieces of software. All right, so I'm going to go back. I'm just going to full reset this, and the next thing I'll look at are the stomp boxes. And you see here I have a compressor, which equals out the sound, evens out the tones on my guitar. I have a phaser, a spring reverb, and I have an EQ over here. So I'm going to get my guitar. Put this over my neck here. Okay, do you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go for, let's just try this. We have an amp. I'm going to go for Fat Rhythm amp. You should be able to hear that. And then I'm going to say, well, let me go ahead and let's turn off the distortion and see what that sounds like. And let's say I just want to play around. So that's a preset, right? It was my Fat Rhythm amp. But let's say I like the amp, but I want to change out some of the pedals. And so I'm just going to go here and let's drop something in. Maybe I want a flanger, right, sitting in there. Turn that on. And that effect isn't as pronounced, so let me drop something else in there and see that. We have overdrive, right? Okay. A vibrabelow. Look at all the pedals I've got. And this is very inexpensive. This is like 39 bucks right now. And so I can kick in my distortion again. Okay. So this is one of many. I have a different guitar rig, which is extremely potent and powerful. It's actually a rack-mounted system that allows me to put a number of rack components in it, as though you had a rack-mounted system sitting in your studio, and you can dial up any sounds that you'd like. But this is a simple version of it. There's of a guitar rig piece of software. It has very simple controls. I go here to Preferences, and just to show you how it connects to my audio interface, you can see that I have input and output. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, good. So this is my Scarlett 4i4, but I have a number of audio inputs that I could use here. I could even use this, my iRig mic, my studio mic, and you could hear my guitar if I had an acoustic through that. You know, I would plug it in there through right, and let I'd use that mic, and my acoustic would then, right? So if I had an acoustic guitar with an acoustic mic, I would just use the acoustic mic. Or if it's sitting, and if it's plugged into my computer through a USB port. And so if you're out and about, you may just have a USB port with a USB mic, and you may just want to record off of that without an audio interface. You can do that with a USB mic. But then I have outputs on my particular audio interface. I have 6 outputs. And I have 6 inputs, so I have, as I mentioned, my guitar is on input 2. It literally is a plug it into port 2, to the second jack on my audio interface, and that is how I tell this software where the signal is coming from. And then you can see sample rates. I'm not going to get into these; they're a little technical, but generally speaking, this is high quality. 512 samples is 4,800 kilohertz. How frequently does it sample the interface sound, right? The input from the interface. And then, let's see. So that's how I set this up. So pretty straightforward. And that's how, as I mentioned, the software knows where my guitar signal is coming from. Okay. So let me stop there. Don't need to go through any of these other things because it gets a little more complicated. But any questions about this right now? No.
Anyone?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to
Thanks,
close
Michael.
that.
Michael,
Yes.
really quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to type stuff in, and it'd be just faster to ask.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I assume you're connecting to a computer, or is this a
This is a
laptop?
MacBook Pro. It's a
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro.
Okay.
But I've got a tablet sitting next to me with an audio interface connected to it, a pretty lightweight audio interface, that I split off my guitar signal to use the synthesizer on the tablet that listens for guitar, converts it to MIDI, and then uses the MIDI to drive the synth sounds, violins or other sounds that I use, and then I can mix those in through my PA. So not only do I get guitar rig sounds and vocal sounds, but I can also then get synth sounds out of my guitar. I could do that all through my MacBook, but I've already got the software paid for and running on the tablet, and I use the tablet anyway. So that's what I use it for.
Are you doing that all over like Wi-Fi, or how are you connecting to the MacBook? To that FireWire, or
Okay,
so is that all going through just that one little plug?
So if you have one audio interface, everything connects through the USB port,
Yeah.
the Thunderbolt port in my case, to the audio interface, and then I have a MIDI pedal which I connect to the audio interface. So a MIDI controller which I step on to make MIDI things happen. That also passes through the audio interface, through the MIDI port, and goes through the USB cable to my computer. So I literally have one cable connected to my MacBook. I have got a MIDI keyboard, I've got my MIDI controller, I've got my... Now, I also use a wireless MIDI called WIDI, MIDI over wireless, that I use to send the MIDI controller signals to my MacBook, so that I don't necessarily need to have a connection, a MIDI cable connecting to my audio interface. Yeah, it's just rocket science. And sometime maybe we'll do a deep dive on this technology so you can see how to set it up.
I think we need to do an actual setup and do the whole thing for them at some point.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
we're getting actually I'm pushing the limit on my time here, but so I wanted to show you. Let me just show you one more thing here. We already looked at that. So I'm just going to go into FenderStudio. I'm going to open that up, share it with you. So this is, let's go ahead and do a little share that. And we're going to go here. Okay, and so I'll just briefly roll through this. There's a section where you can select any one of these set of instrument tracks and then use that as a jam track within. So I don't really want to do that. Hello. We did. And what it does is it lays down a bunch of tracks inside of here, inside of this software that you can then use, and I'll play it. You can use to jam with and record yourself. And if you've never seen a DAW or digital audio workstation before, this is a very simple one. It has it has drums, has multiple. In this track, this jam track, it has multiple guitars. It has some other instruments, but in any DAW, and then it has your guitar, by the way. And so I could, in a very simple sense here, open up the channel for my guitar, right? This particular one. I could then just use a basic amp. I could throw a pedal on there. Let's just throw a little fuzz. Yeah, there we go. And let's just confirm that. Okay. And then, okay, and let's close that. So that's basically my guitar setup. I then can go here and I can say, well, hello. Close that. Okay, I can then click my little prime button. I can click this little speaker here, which allows me then to hear what's going on. And okay, I'm gonna stop that. And I probably have got to go here and say, so for some reason I'm not getting my guitar on input 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out real quick because it defaults to 1, I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's just close that out. And then well, you can hear, so I could record, I could then jam along to the recording, except for technical reasons I'm not hearing the guitar. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing it. I don't have time to jump into the interface to fix that problem. But you can see these very large gyrations here next to my guitar in that blue box. That's my guitar being recorded. And so that means that this allows me then to put a jam track up. I can delete any of these backing track components, instruments that I want. I could mute them and record along to some of them. Right, and then if I go here on my guitar, as I mentioned earlier, I can go to any number of presets. Right, there's a tremolo twin, for example, and my guitar becomes a tremolo guitar that I then use to play along with these instruments, and record myself. I won't show you the vocals, but you just click on this button, you can add vocals. It has some basic vocal processing that I could then, which is my mic is to my right, plugged into my audio interface. I would say it's on audio interface port number 1 or 2, and then I could record vocals while I'm also playing my guitar, or separately after I lay down the guitar track. So it's more powerful than this, but it's free. It's called FenderStudio, and it's something that I recommend you try out for recording, and to get more than just basic recording, which you would get from a single recording app. You can, like I say, multi-track it. You can record multiple takes, things of that nature with it. So, okay, any questions about FenderStudio?
Yeah, and I think we'll do an episode on setting up a DAW, and I think that'd be fun to
I think so.
Absolutely.
show
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah, no, this is one of these occasions where it works great in the pre-demo myself, and then you set it up and you start it, and then it doesn't want to work for you because my guitar should be coming through. It's not. What can I say? All right, that's the end of my presentation. I hope it was valuable, gave you a good overview of what's possible and what it takes to set it up. So back to you, Daniel.
We just need you to stop sharing.
Oh, I know. I love sharing. Yeah, like I say, I would love to stop sharing.
We
My
have, we've had the gremlins today.
We have, because I have. There we go. I have to
Hey,
get out of everything to stop my sharing.
just when
But
you
okay.
think you can have a good show, we're
Yep.
gonna have to do the intro at the end for.
And then you can cut it to the front. There you go. Yeah, beautiful.
So,
All right.
thanks, Michael. We appreciate that. Oh,
So
I'm really learning a lot about audio interface, guys. It's really been helpful. I've been playing around with it myself. I downloaded the FenderStudio, and I've been just horsing around with it, and I've had success with it. I like it. It's a little fun. So, and now we're going to have Mr. John DeMarco, our other guitar guru. He's going to actually show us some of these audio interfaces, maybe a little hookup and all that. Take it away, John.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so as we mentioned before, really an audio interface, it's just a hardware box, and it connects your analog audio sources like microphones and instruments to a computer. And I won't go into great detail, but it does convert what we call analog audio signals, which is what happens in the real world, and it turns it into digital data that goes into your computer or your phone, laptop, whatever. And I'm just going to go to the next slide here. And probably the biggest thing you need to understand and know from your end is what kind of connections do you have on your device? Okay, there's a million different kind of connections out there on, everything from, all the different iPhones. There's 2 or 3 different kinds of connections. Macs or Apple computers have different connections, slightly different than, PCs do. In general, any of the devices we're going to show you today is going to be using either what's called a USB Type C over on the right-hand side there, or a USB Type B, sometimes coming out of the audio interface itself. So really the big thing you're looking for is what is my device? What kind of a connection do I need between that and whatever device is going into the audio interface, or whatever connection is going into the audio interface. And again, I'm going to say 85% of them are using USB Type C these days, but you will still see interfaces that use Type B on one end and Type C on the other. I will mention that on Macs, on Apple computers, they have something that looks like a USB-C on the far right-hand corner, and you'll see that it's labeled Thunderbolt. And you can actually use a USB cable and it'll work, but it will not have as high a throughput as an actual lightning cable would. Okay, so again, if you have a Mac and you've got a lightning connection, you'd want to make sure the cable could take advantage of all that bandwidth. And then USB-C is pretty much ubiquitous on everything now, including new iPhones and iPads, as well as on Android. So I'm going to talk just for a second about bits and kilohertz, because you will see these on every web page that you go to look at these interfaces on. And there's a lot of stuff here, and I'll make sure you guys have the slide deck if you want it afterwards. But really, the thing you want to do is make sure that it's a 24-bit, which is what they call the bit rate or the bit depth, and then that it does at least 48 kilohertz on the sample rate. And I won't again go into great detail here, but if you think about those two things, 24-bit is how big are the boxes going down the conveyor belt, and then that sample rate is how fast are those boxes going down that conveyor belt, right? And so what winds up happening is that you can go higher than 48 kilohertz, and you'll see that many of them that I'm going to show you in a minute actually have very high, sample rates. Two things about that. One is that it's going to take up a lot more disk space, okay, because the file will be much bigger. The second thing is, I will tell you, I don't know that the average person is ever going to hear the difference, at least not the kind of stuff that we're doing these days. And pretty much a standard today is that 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. But if you were doing a professional recording, you'd want to capture it at a higher sample rate probably to begin with. But eventually it would be online on Spotify in that 48 kilohertz rate. This is another, connections diagram, a couple of them, a couple different boxes. And so it's a lot of what Michael already went through with you, but these are the standalone ones that sit next to your computer and or your tablet or, even your phone if you wanted to. And notice that there's connections for each of the things that Michael mentioned, right? You've got a mic interface a mic input. You've got another input for some sort of a line input or an instrument. You've got outputs that go to speakers. Whoops, sorry. And then you've got something for your headphones. And of course, you've got these connections here that look kind of funny. If you're going to have in the future or have one now, you have any kind of a MIDI controller or a keyboard, you'd want to have one of these on the box. And then, there is this main connection that goes to your computer or your device, whatever it is. The reason I put two examples of this up here is just so you realize that, sometimes they put one of the mic inputs on the back of it, or they put the headphones on the front on one model or one company's, and they put it on the back on another one. But they all have basically the same thing, right? They've got volume knobs. They've usually got switches to tell it if it's an instrument or a microphone. And it's pretty, pretty much the same thing, just different layout, different colors of the boxes. So I'm going to go through a little from really cheap to kind of inexpensive still, but a higher end of interfaces. And what you'll see here on this first page is these are all under $100 or even less, right? $19, $24. They're very simple. They come with no software. They probably have a headphone out, and they probably have an instrument in, and that's it. And then it connects into your device. They work perfectly fine, but you're not going to get any software with it, and there's not much to it. Now, the one difference is Fender has got that Fender DAW now that Michael showed you. And at the end of the slide deck, I've got some other free DAWs, and they almost always come with some, let's call them pedals or effects that you can use, with that software. But this is very bare bones, the ones that we're looking at here. Now, if I go to the next step, we're going to look at a whole bunch of different iRigs. So Michael showed you essentially the one here in the bottom right-hand corner. That's the real expensive one. I've got one of these ones in the upper left hand for 39 bucks, the iRig 2. And notice it's got a funny cord coming out of it. That's because I've got a really old iPad that the only thing I use it for when I travel is to plug my guitar into it. And it has one of these strange little inputs for headphones with the old jack style and a speaker out of the same jack on this old iPad. And so I keep this around. The software, there was no really real software that came with this at the time, and I don't know that they have much of anything now. But if you start buying some of their higher priced iRigs, or in the case in the lower corner down here, this is a real expensive iRig. It's over 200 bucks. That happens to come with a lot of software, a lot of software. Now, some of these are not the full-blown piece of software. They're like we're going to give you a taste of it and then ask you to if you want more, you got to pay for it. But they're all workable pieces of software, and you'll notice that some of these are for a Mac and a PC, and some of this is for portable devices like phones and iPads, etc. On the left here is a little bit more of a diagram of what you have for inputs and outputs on this. There's been a lot of slides around iRig, and we don't want you to think that that's the only thing out there. But it is sort of an interesting device. It's probably pretty ubiquitous, but so are some of the other ones that I'm going to show you here shortly. So if I go to my next slide here, now we're getting into these box interfaces that hook up with a USB cable to your device. And I want you to notice on the left-hand side here, we've got an M Audio, two of them, and one of them is called an HD, and one is just called M-Track Duo. And the difference between these two, the $69 one is only 16-bit. And I will tell you that I am using that device right now. It's only 16-bit. It's not, it's the difference between thousands and thousands of tones and millions. There's the difference between 16-bit and 24-bit. So my next box is definitely going to be a 24-bit because it's just, it's where we want to be. Over on the right, you see a Behringer Euphoria, and, that kind of splits the difference at 86 bucks. I also mentioned that the Behringer doesn't necessarily have any software coming with it, but the M Audios have something called MPC Beats and something called Revolver, which is three different amps and maybe a handful of different effect pedals. So you have something to get started right away with either one of those on the left-hand side there. I keep hitting the wrong button. Now we're getting a little bit more expensive, and you'll see that we've got the Tascam on the left. We've got one up on the upper right from our who is it? That's our friends at Zoom.
Zoom.
Yep. And then we've got a Focusrite, and you'll see that I've put some software in the green boxes on the two of these. So Cubase LE is a DAW that comes with it. Sample Tank SE is some effects that you could use for your guitars. That's on that Tascam on the left, and then on the right, on the Focusrite, you'll see that they've got some things like they've got 3 months of Pro Tools intro. Then they want you to subscribe, but they do give you something called Ableton Live Lite, which is a DAW, and it is free, and you get to keep it. And it also has something called Hitmaker with some software included, and that has got some Marshall amps, I want to say, available to you right out of the box from them as well. And then lastly, I would just tell you, think about in terms of what you really need or want. You might be able to find a bundle out there. So on the left, another really well-known interface, PreSonus, makes a lot of great musical equipment. But here's an example where they're packing a microphone, headphones, and speakers along with the audio interface, and you know uh, software for you as well. Um, in the bottom right, it's a Focusrite, and it's got two inputs and two outs, and they give you, in that case of that bundle, they give you headphones and a microphone. And then, I can't vouch for the veracity of that one up in the right-hand corner, but that's 69 bucks for a mic and an audio interface. That's off of Amazon, and I don't think that it has any software. But for 69 bucks, you might want to give it a shot. I don't know for sure. It's got a lot of good reviews, and it's, probably pretty simple, but, it does have 48 volt phantom power, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it does have the ability to put an XLR mic in there, which is a little bit more, well, it's usually a little bit more expensive mic. And we're going to talk about mics in just a second briefly. Anyway, sometimes a bundle might be the way you want to go. And then uh, I did want to just mention microphones, and we could do a whole show about microphones, but there's basically three kinds that you want to keep in mind about or think about. There's what are called dynamic mics, condenser mics, and USB mics. And the thing with a dynamic mic, we were laughing about this the other day. Um, you can pound nails with a dynamic mic, right? It's what you see every band using up on stage, right? They're usually a couple of pounds. They're built like, little bricks, and they're not very delicate. The condenser mics tend to be used more in the studio, and they're a lot more delicate usually. And then USB mics is a relatively new thing in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years or something. You don't need an audio interface for a USB mic. You just plug it right into your device or your computer, just like you would the audio interface, and it has its own built-in little audio interface. So if all you wanted to do was give it a try of recording your voice and maybe your acoustic guitar, you could try a USB direct in. Again, you wouldn't have any software at that point necessarily, but it might be a possibility. And then on the bottom of it, I got some specs, and I'm just going to tell you that two things here. One is you're never going to find a mic with exactly those specs that I have there, and most microphones are more like around 90 hertz to maybe 15 kilohertz, and it's plenty good for vocals and plenty good for an acoustic guitar. If you want a real professional instrument mic and you're spending hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, you might be able to get down to 40 hertz and up to 18. And just so you have something to judge by, 20 kilohertz is like dog whistle vibrations, right? So that's one of the things that you have to realize is that probably none of us need the top end of any of this stuff. At least that's my opinion. Having said that, I just want to talk one more thing about microphones, and that is condenser mics. They're highly sensitive. I'm using one right now for my voice, but you need really careful placement and acoustic treatment especially if you're recording music. It's got a very wide frequency response, and it does require external power, and it's called phantom power, and it's almost always 48 volts. And most of those boxes that we looked at have the ability to turn a switch or push a switch, and it provides that to the microphone. Some of those condenser mics also will allow you to put batteries into the microphone, but there's nothing worse than trying to perform and have the battery die. Been there, did that, hated it. And then dynamic mics, they're less sensitive. And in fact, you probably have to get your mouth pretty darn close to it, because it's got a very focused, situation. And, it's used ubiquitously for instruments. It's used for live performances. Again, it's what you've seen every singer holding in their hand. And it does not require external power. And you can buy dynamic mics from about $18 for no names all the way up to, thousands. I would tell you that most of the big microphone manufacturers have got things that are very, very good, even in the sub $100 range. That is more than good enough for what we're going to be doing in our bedrooms, with our DAWs and stuff. If you're performing, you might want a little bit better, right? But if you're, if you haven't got a lot of dollars to spend, you can get something. It's very well, you can really do well for you. And then just to talk about those connections one more time, you have to have the right kind of input jack for microphones. And so you'll see on the left, I've got what's called an XLR connection. And that's like three little prongs. And most of the boxes that we showed you tonight have got connections that allow you to connect more than one kind of input, right? They're an XLR, they're a balanced in from like a dynamic mic, which is what's on the right-hand side there. And it's also usually with the flip of a switch, you can plug in your guitar and have an instrument, plugged directly into the interface. And then, last, and again, we'll probably talk more about microphones when we get to, showing you the DAW in more depth at some point. But then the last thing I wanted to just talk about is there is a lot of free DAWs out there, digital audio workstations. In the lower right, you saw that the FenderStudio that Michael showed you, it's free. They want your they want your email address so they can bother you. But when you do that, they give you a few more pedals, and it's a nice, simple, way in. And then, and it's basically all platforms, right? Whatever device you've got, you can hook it up to with the right cord. Also, I would tell you, you could look at Traction, and you could look at Audacity. And when I send out the slides, you'll be able to click on the URLs and go right to the download pages for all of these if you're interested. On the left-hand side, you'll notice I've got a screenshot of Apple GarageBand. That's only for Apple, and it comes free with any Apple device. And then on the bottom is a PC only, and that's Cakewalk, and it's been around for 100 years or something, it seems like. So a lot of software for you to play with. They all come with some sort of effects that you could use on your guitar or voice. And yeah, so that's kind of what I've got for you guys.
Thank you,
Any
John.
questions? I know I blasted through that, but any questions?
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. When you look at those interfaces, you only need USB 2.0 to connect your computer to an audio interface. It has enough bandwidth to record at the 48 kilohertz, right, and the bit speeds. So that's one thing. You'll find USB 3.0 is probably the most predominant interface out there today, USB interface. And the only other thing I'd mention is that when you're looking at audio interfaces, they have different feature sets, but the primary difference is in the basically the processor inside, right? So the actual the electronics that process the signal. You'll find that some are rated higher than others, some are noisier than others. But other than that, it really is a feature set selection that you want to look at. Anyway, there you go.
Yep. And my opinion is if you don't mind experimenting, you can start out with a little bit less expensive,
Yep.
and then move up as you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So
Now, Jay was asking about, asked if there was any lag. I think that's where you come into bit rates.
yeah, that's kind of two different things. That's
Mm-hmm.
the speed of the interface, but also your computer,
Right.
right? Your device.
I was going to
So,
say that.
yep, yep. So, I tell you what, I'm on an iMac from 2020. I keep threatening that I'm going to get a new one because mine is so slow compared to my wife's got a MacBook that's just 2 generations newer. It's got an M2 chip, and it is blazing compared to my 5-year-old iMac. So I guess I can't really emphasize enough that the more power you have, the less you're going to have to deal with those kind of lags.
Exactly. I'm actually my microphone's coming to you through the courtesy of Behringer with an audio interface in it. So I have an 8-channel mixer. However, you can't record all 8 channels. It won't work that way. It will record 2 channels at a time, just like any really good audio interface will. That's under $1,000. That is. You start getting into the big boy stuff, and that's when you can have your individual channels. But I'm really starting to take take audio interface and software, computer software for guitar uh, uh, into my rigs. I mean, I'm a guy that used to say there's nothing better than an amplifier behind you, but I'm starting to really get a sense of uh, coming into the 21st century. Maybe I just really like uh, I just really like the way that they're what is
All right,
that?
guys, mute your mics.
Right? I got things coming up all over my screen. Um, anyway, I'm starting to embrace the the audio interface and using digital software. I really do like modeling amps. I like what they can do, but I like for recording purpose. So far, I've been enjoying using what I've actually just downloaded for free. I can't imagine how much better it would be if I actually bought a little bundle.
Yeah, the trouble with that, I always say, is that you wind up playing with all the toys and you never make music if you're not careful.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's
Don't
what
do
I'm
that.
afraid of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly
the
what
other,
I'm afraid of.
the other thing I'll say is that as powerful and as good modeling that these software, computer software rigs can do for you, what you listen to them with makes a huge difference.
Right.
Right. So don't get yourself a 6-inch speaker and expect to have your Marshall stack behind you. Cabinets, I have a big JBL PA system that has a huge range, or frequency range, has monster speakers, has tweeters, out the yin yang, right? So it sounds really, really nice. And if I plug it into my little, 6-inch speaker amp, right, my play amp, it's pathetic, so it will make a difference. And if you can't afford a nice big set of speakers with, for your listening pleasure, at least get yourself a decent set of headphones
Right.
to listen with it. Right. Okay. That's my spiel on
Yeah,
Y'all
sound.
can
yeah,
unmute yourselves. We can talk here now.
Yeah.
yeah. And I would say,
It
I know
is
they're
question and answer time.
these over-the-ear headphones always sound better
Then
than
your
the little earbuds.
little yeah.
It always
Yeah.
sounds more real to me with these big guys on. So,
If I went into the studio that I apprenticed in with a set of those, the engineer that I was learning under would smack me about the.
what he would have actually said, Daniel, is, "Where did you find something that tiny?"
Oh gosh.
Just said.
So it's anybody have any questions on this? I mean, I know this is kind of the way I think that we're going to be using amplification for our guitars and music in general. I mean, even the pros are using it using interfaces with just using MIDI pedals and having all their rig. They don't have a back line anymore. Everything's coming through their ear monitors, and
Yeah, it's all software.
it's all
Yeah,
software.
yeah, that's the wave of the future.
Like Eric, well, that's what Eric Andreas kind of showed us the other
Hmm.
day with he had that Kempler profiler, which is, it's a modeling amp on the floor, but I mean, that's how minimal we're getting.
Yeah.
Any other questions, folks?
One other thing I was just going to mention is I actually used a microphone and my acoustic guitar. I had some ideas and I recorded it into the DAW. And all of a sudden I realized, gee, I wish I had a little bit of distortion on this. And I just, went into my kit and picked a distortion and it didn't sound that bad. So even if you don't have an electric guitar and you're willing to put up with it, you can get some pretty amazing sounds. I wound up re-recording it with an electric guitar, but it's a lot of fun and you don't have to have a lot of gear, to get a lot of fun out of it.
And if y'all are married and or you got a bunch of screaming children around and you want to isolate yourself, audio interface and a set of headphones, and you're all good to go. So, and you're not disturbing anybody, nobody disturbing you. No more questions, guys? Any comments? We'd like to let you know, you guys know how to do private messaging on CavArts. If you guys have any questions to us or you have some subject that you might want us to tap into and bring about for a show, just let us know. We're open for it. Okay, and so on that then, the guitar shop is now closing. Until we open again, we will be back on our regular second Saturday afternoon in July. Keep an eye out for the date and time on that. Again, wherever you get your information regarding Guitar for Vets. Reminder that Tom Lamag is going to have his iJam. He's having that on the first Thursday of every month. And I believe that there is a guitar brigade set up for next week. What the topic is on that one, I'm not 100% sure. And that, of course, is brought to you by Ken Morlino and David Kraut. All right, so thank you for being a part of today's discussion. And as always, my heartfelt thanks to my guitar gurus, John DeMarco and Michael O'Connell. Guitar for Vets is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to providing relief to struggling veterans through the healing power of music and community. Since 2007, Guitar for Vets has served at-risk United States veterans impacted by PTSD and other service-related trauma through our unique 10-week structured guitar instruction program, putting the healing power of music in the hands of our nation's heroes, helping to foster renewal, connection, and community. And I would say on that, namaste, thank you all.